The AA is known for its wackiness in architecture, and our group, I would say, is probably one of the wackiest groups around. We're certainly square pegs that don't fit into the circle. About half of us are architects, and the other half are not architects. So we have product designers, artists, curators, set designers, and hopefully you'll see that in the work. Please take a bit of time after the exhibition to take a look at all the work. There's a guide by the door over there. And so why are we here? Why is this group of people here? We are all here to work on collaboration, working together, working with architects, artists, all of us working together. And that's where the whole idea about conversations about collaboration came up. And in the times of emails and blogs and so on, we really wanted to bring back fine art conversation and talking in person. So this is why we've all invited you to this room. We're inviting questions at the end of this presentation, people to discuss. This should all be, an open forum, so please feel free to discuss with everyone. There's a couple of people I'd like to thank for making these conversations possible. I'd like to thank Esther McLaughlin, who's been super helpful. Joel and Nick, who have been amazing with getting together all the AV equipment, the exhibitions team, Pascal and the catering team, the MTech students who have been collaborating with us and who have done a fabulous job, and we'll hear about our collaboration in a little bit. My fellow AAIS participants who have been absolutely fantastic putting together this exhibition, in particular Will, who's been really helping me with all of the guest lists and so on. Probably a few of you heard from him. Capo, who's helped us with a few of the guest speakers and so on, and the rest of you. Maybe you should all raise your hands so people know who you are. We have a little hello. These are the AAIS members. And I'd like to thank Theo and Tanya, who have put together this crazy idea of this crazy group of people, and some fantastic tutors. And finally, I'd like to thank Brett for taking time to host all of these conversations. So maybe I should just put it over to you.
Thank you very much. And welcome everybody tonight. I will keep my remarks or comments at the beginning very briefly. I thought it would be useful to just shortly contextualize this evening's event in 2 or 3 different ways. The first one, of course, is that it's a kind of launching event. The exhibition space is a launching event as part of the new AAIS program, which Tony will say something about in just a moment. That's the most immediate context. The second one is an interest within the school more generally to engage individuals, artists, designers, architects, and scholars in formats other than the contemporary lecture monologue mode that most of us know well and participate in all too frequently around the world. I think this is one of dozens of events that we're organizing this year at the AA that are deliberately non-monologue-like in their organization. They are, in fact, trying to mine what some people have called the divine art of conversations, and to bring it back as a form of not just exchange, but genuine learning and invention and discovery. In fact, there's a remarkable legacy of that very nearby this building, in this neighborhood in the past century. And the third context really is the idea of a salon, or rooms like this, which happen to be one of the great inventions of European modern culture in the 17th and 18th century particularly, and forms of philosophy and human inquiry emerged in rooms very much like this one, and I think the AAIS group did something very smart by picking this room as the place to launch such an idea. They did two things, it looks like. The first thing is they improved the floor considerably from its normal form, laying down a bit of carpet, and they picked the room with a single piece of equipment that is valued more than anything else in the A, which is this peculiar chandelier and Adam ceiling from 150 years or so ago. The AA happens to be cited in quite a famous network for the idea of a contemporary or modern salon. As you all know, the Bloomsbury group flourished here in the early parts of the 20th century. Strangely, as a group of visual artists, writers, a philosopher, an economist, all of whom invented ideas, strangely, through conversations in rooms like this, which had a very strange resonance through the 20th century. The Bloomsbury group sits really at the end of a legacy of what's now known as the British coffee house, which arrived in this country in the 18th century and became settings for people to get together across what were emerging then as new professions to talk about ideas. The Bloomsbury group is right at the end of that, and they uncovered things like conscientious objection to the First World War, which was brought to a public audience for the first time by a group of artists in this neighborhood, which then lived a very interesting life through the 20th century to flourish in strange places like the streets of the USA in the 1960s and Gandhi's India and other places around the world. Part of what this kind of a project is trying to do today is to bring that back in a context that I think is far deeper and in ways more meaningful than just a contemporary slogan of collaboration, which, as you all know, is something that's now being used to beat to death almost every idea around the world. One of the most interesting aspects of the AA, I find, as an institution, is that it has an incredibly deep history of collaborative thinking that's run through the school really throughout its modern life. If you go back to the 1930s, when the term unit is used for the first time, the idea of a kind of unit study, what you will find emerge then is projects that are being pursued by more than one author, designer, or student at a time. The first sort of 4 or 5 person groups emerged in the 1930s here. In the 50s, it becomes quite popular, and partners that will go on to found large practices graduate from the school. In the 60s, Arthur Graham and that kind of legacy reinvents it. And in the 70s, OMA and others do it again. I think that's part of the sort of deeper history of collaborative thinking that's trying to provide some of the intellectual context for the ambition of AAIS, and more specifically the kind of cross-disciplinary ideas that you'll see start to emerge in the conversations tonight. I've been invited in to do a little bit of moderating. I'll try and keep that very light. I want you all to help me with that. We will do that really by asking people not to use notes or not to use too much in the way of the crutches we associate with lectures, but actually engage one another in the kind of conversation, and I know you all can help with that. I'll pass over to Tanya, who I think is going to say a few things about AAIS, and then we'll begin the presentation and discussion. 2 groups of people tonight, just to say very briefly. Each will introduce themselves and their collaborative project for a few minutes at the beginning of the session, and with that, everyone will join us either around the table or around this room and start the conversation. Tanya?
To just start, the whole AAIS just took us 3 years to get together, so we discussed that with me and Saskia and Theo, of course. So it took us 3 years to set it up as a kind of interprofessional course, and to have a kind of different disciplines, so like working in a kind of architecture environment with different disciplines. This year we have a curator, we have architects, product designers, artists as well, media artists, so like a whole group working on applied projects. That's really important. And to make these kind of projects happen, we need, of course, funding. So this year, this program is funded by and I must say, and Weimar. Plus, for making that structure happen, we need a different grant. So the Culture Fund from Germany gave us some money to do this kind of structure, and the Flame was really helpful to make it happen. So they are our architectures. Yeah, so Catherine said already most of the stuff I wanted to say. So maybe I just hand it over to... Oh yeah, thank you to Adam, because he's a curator for this exhibition. And I hand over to Mike and Theo to introduce the collaboration with the architects too.
Hello. Well, the interesting thing is how you start a collaboration before you even have a course. And actually, Mike and I, and as well a couple of other people in the room, started to talk about a project in Jena which might come if we get a fund, first of the EU and the culture program in Germany. We were not quite sure what they demanded. They said, like, we have the theatre festival of 3 weeks and we need audience structure, and if we would be willing to do such a thing. We said, yeah, it sounds really interesting, as long as it's not too dangerous, too big, and too expensive, we could do that, but we should do actually a kind of association between a couple of people in the school. And so I went to Mike and asked him, what do you think of something like that? At that time I was teaching diploma and relations in one year, but yeah.
Well, I had a really easy bit. I just said, yeah, of course that can be done. It's really simple. And then I passed it up to these guys. This is your job to make this work. Just picking up slightly on the thing that Greg introduced. Collaboration is just a pleasure to do. Architecture is always best when you think about it as what you do with other people for other people. It's a very good way to think and a good way to live your life. I think I'd like to pass this on to the people who actually did the work. Maria and Mohammed.
Yeah, I think as you said, it's quite important to, I think the main reason why we wanted to join this project is because it was a collaboration in between architects, engineers, artists, and we really wanted to make that happen with the concept of the structure, which is based on the dragonfly wing, on the pattern that we see in a dragonfly wing, which is it has hexagons, rectangles, and pentagons. And basically, just really quickly, hexagons give you quite a lot of flexibility in the scheme of the dragonfly wing, and on the other side, rectangles make it more rigid, and that's exactly what we tried to do with this structure. But there was always a conversation in between the concept design and the actual manufacturing process within place.
Before we really come to the technicalities, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about the setup of the whole thing. Because the Theater Jena, which is the only independent theatre in Europe, actually, which is completely self-funded and things, is our main client, but as well a partner within the youth fund. So already there we have quite a strange relationship because we're partners against our clients. One of the people there is a house architect who has as well collaborated with us. We are, as a group, are academics, yet we have to work on a real project on the shortest time, smallest budget, in a huge scale we ever had in the school for this kind of thing. So we just started in general to set up the whole thing. We had nothing, just to say, okay, then we have actually the funds. So we started with getting manufacturers interested and actually plate work. And we had two conversations with you guys, and the first meeting was like, this is completely impossible. And I think this should be actually the title of the project, the Impossible Project, because when we get now through the thing which actually happened in the end, you'll see it is impossible. So for £30,000 about, or actually euros, we had to build a building which is 20 by 20 by 8 meter high, which is actually in the public ground. It has to be used by up to 70 people in less than 2 months with the German planning principle, which is way tougher than anything you can imagine here. We went through a planning process where we worked with, first with MTech, but then as well with Webgate architects who are always collaborating with Inflate, which started as 20 pages as a planning application and ended up being 150 pages of detailed everything for a building they didn't get at all in Germany. I mean, inflatable, they were completely scared. What do you mean by that? It's just air, like, and so on. So in the end, if you see things like this, we had to explain every single member within this inflatable, even though it's nothing but a bouncy castle. So there is no danger within. It comes in a package like this, and I think as everyone as well started talking how we build up the whole thing, as well, a couple of details of all that.
Just before I go on, the MTech group that we worked with were 5 people, me and myself, as well as Pavlos, Ioana, and Kostis. What was interesting about the whole package was, Theo mentioned it's a bouncy castle, and that was the driving force. How can we make it not look like a bouncy castle? What can we do to make this not look like a bouncy castle? So through the concept design, all that stuff, we finally came to build it. And as you see by the crates, to have something that's 20 by 20 by 8 come in a box that's 2 by 2 by 2 is something kind of phenomenal. To actually see this box just open up, laid out on such a vast surface and explode into something that is really fully there. Many problems were faced, and the nice thing about collaborating with the AAIS and with the Inflate guys is that they're very on-the-spot solution oriented. Okay, there's a problem, what do we need to do? Let's fix it. What's the solution? 2 by 4 timber woods, 4 screws, 4 washes, get it, put it in place, screw them, inflate it up. And that's what we really liked about actually collaborating with Inflate, is that the solution oriented. Yes, there will be problems faced, but get us some string, a needle, and start sewing it up. And so inflating it was kind of the moment for us, because it could have gone either way. And to actually have it go as smoothly as it went, we did not want to take it down. We thought, okay, this is it, it's up, let's leave it. Hopefully it'll stand for 17 days. But yeah, I mean, it's been great.
The interesting thing is that obviously we had heavy kind of set like you can have. It was raining like mad that day. Just after the pollen were flying around everywhere. So the whole thing was full of yellow honeycombs, which is for a white structure not the same we want to have. And of course, in German regulations, it's twice the regular wind speed you have to calculate. So we have 40 tons in a 900 kilogram building, just to balance it down. And that was the main work as well, where everybody really pushed in and actually put this concrete into the building. And once that was done, it was only 5 minutes to have the thing standing. But you see that the form itself is quite mad for an inflatable, because there's a double curved air beam. And of course everybody was kind of curious how that's held up with a kind of honeycomb behind it, and how it's actually stable enough, especially within the wind. This was after the first fight, and our first kind of awe effect, which was actually better than expected, that you stand inside the building and have the light from above, which is in this case was just a standard setting they have all the times. And the next day then we did the internal inflate, which is the main audience space then. And yeah, as you can see, we come back to the bouncy castle. Which in Germany there's a tradition, just the night before the 1st of May is usually for punks and people to go out and celebrate like mad, getting drunk and jumping into scenes.
Okay, we did achieve the fact to make it not look like a bouncy castle, to sober people at least. But when drunk people are involved, it's a completely different issue. We stayed up. The first night it went up, we were all very excited, very pleased. It finally went up. It's finally up and running. So we went to dinner. We come back, and as we're walking towards the theater to pick up the cab, we see shadows flying inside the structure, jumping and screaming. And we're thinking, okay, this can't be a good thing. So me and Theo run inside and we're like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, we're jumping on the bouncy castle. Isn't this what it is? I was like, no, it's not. It's not a bouncy castle. So that was like at 12 a.m. And apparently that night there was a huge rock concert that was going on. And we had to stay till 4 a.m. outside the building. Even though there was a security guard, but God bless his soul, it was like 70, maybe something like that. But I mean, the 5 of us literally stayed there, and Maria was the intimidator, we called her. Because, believe me, for some reason, the drunk people are afraid of small girls rather than big guys. So that's a piece of advice to everyone. But it was perfect. We saved it. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Well, as you can see, from the next night on, we had kind of ropes around it, and the security guy had to park within the building completely to protect it. Obviously, I mean, if somebody slips it, or then the thing goes down, and that would have been it. That was the night before the opening. So, well, but then it stood out, and the opening could happen. And actually, it was quite a nice event, because it was, on that day, it's finally sunny. So it worked really well. The different effects we tried as well, obviously with the light, and the different effects, especially during day and night, of the kind of either the glacier, like scene, the white thing was just standing in the middle of the town, you could see all down the road, or then the illuminated thing at night. And in a way, the interesting thing comes then, this next step of collaboration. Until here, there was a lot about manufacturing, engineering, and putting up this thing. But then actually to bring it alive, the theatre people really came into play. How you illuminate it, how actually they move people around it, how they organize it, and what the sequence of presentation is within a building like this. So,
just say briefly what the program and the event space was.
The theatre. The interesting thing about theatre is Valdio Gropius building, or conversion from the 1920s. In the DDR times, they demolished the whole audience space, which was a 700 people audience space, huge. I mean, one of the biggest in the whole of Thuringia. But so since then, since the 1980s, there is no audience space. It's just a theatre which takes place completely inside the old stage. And it's a huge, revolving, beautiful stage. And you have this amazing black space above you, where you have all the kind of props and things hanging within actually the audience space. So it's a reverse theatre. The thing they really wanted to avoid, and that's why they asked us as well, to have the impression that you have an old theatre back, so they need to have commercial plays again. So they asked us to do something which is a lovely, inviting space, which is completely unusual for the thing. Doesn't remind at all to what Bauhaus was back then, but in the ingenuity and playfulness would remind them. So what we came up with was a double space, where once you have the clear connection to the inside of the internal space, but then a kind of surrounding lobbying space, which is arching as well over the stage itself. And in the opening night, the interesting thing was, day. Am I going back? I think it is. The lobby itself could be completely different at any moment. So the interesting thing, it was so white in the bright sun, the light did shine through really nicely, and the people gathered on this black stage in front of a big iron curtain, which is the only connection between the inside and the outside of the theatre. And before the performance, all of a sudden this iron curtain goes up and opens up a dark space. So, interesting enough, a concept we discussed very much earlier in the course of the kind of the 100% white space versus the white box against white space against the black box. Okay, so it really worked in that way, and that was a fascinating thing. The interesting thing, however, was that it was the procedure of going in, seeing still out into a daylighting. And afterwards, when you came out again, it was illuminated artificially, so it was completely different surrounding and became a stage for you of different, so this after party took place. But there were different settings where it became audience spaces for discussions after, for sonographers, or actually normal audience seats as a kind of auditorium space in that place.
The interesting thing is that what happened in AAIS, people started continuing to use it in different ways. So each of the participants worked in their own performance and their own design, their own architecture bits or spatial things, I would say, which are as well quite artistic in their expression, how it reflects towards the building. So, for example, Laura's piece here is a dress which is as well dramatic or inflatable, but lives on the conditions of a plant and as well people which are in Jena. So you have to breathe in order to give a plant life, but as well use a structure in order to make what happens in the medium. This was filmed as well within the city and around the city, and how it actually is situated as a kind of family. And yeah, we always called it the bride dress for building as well. Or we had Will's Vorplatzspiele, which took place in a couple of spaces actually. One is organized with the foundation inside Bedford Square. Then it moved to Bauhaus stage in Dessau. And then it came back to Jena the day after, and the young theatre group of them on this kind of sports field, I want to say, but which is animating people to act. And the interesting thing was how this group really started transforming the space, but as well the background of the building with this quite intelligent group. Another performance with this Swiss Takako and Anna. I have to move a bit. Emma Watson, who's coming next week, and you should see her performing here. Which day, Takako? Tuesday.
From 1 to 3.
From 1 to 3. And interestingly, a different kind of performance with spatial design of Takako, followed by a dance of Emma. We're kind of using this space in a completely different way again, just same afternoon as the young group before. All the different projects we had before as kind of stage sets and scenography, which were part of the Bleak House production as well, but as well part of different scenarios, could be projected and transform the building as well. So we had a series of tests how that works in this relations as well. So I think this explains the concept of what we try to do, that architecture or space is the revolving midpoint for collaboration of different disciplines. And you misuse in a way and reappropriate all the different people of actually using the space and therefore designing it together. And the building wouldn't be the same without the projection. It wouldn't be the same without the collaboration of actually manufacturing. But it wouldn't be the same without the kind of organization of the theatre as well. So how this in-between area of work actually brings out products in an impossible time and actually makes people work in different ways as well, because I think I wouldn't have accepted this job as an architect's office. I think Inflate wouldn't have accepted that job from a normal company. And you can go through the whole thing like that. Nobody would have, the planning department would have never said yes if we wouldn't have been this crazy group of people with a cultural fund. And so on and so on. And yeah, it stayed quite exciting until the very end. The building was taken down now, and the festival is over on Monday. And we literally went through all structural testing we can have, because we had wind speed 7 to 8 almost on the last night, just after the people left the audience space. But it was actually the only thing standing up. Everything, the sign here on the side was ripped off, and as well an exhibition which was in front of there was completely blown away. The building was shaking, of course, but it was very stable. So the planning department now trusts us. And so the collaboration worked on all ends. So, and I hope we can continue that in the years to come, because it was very successful. Alex and Wolfgang. Well, Alex is one of the persons I know longest in school already, like from day one. But Alex is a publisher of product publishing, and Wolfgang is a scientist with, can you say the exact name of the thing from 2000? And they started a project years ago, which always fascinated me, which is very spatial, but yet on a completely different scale. And that's why we actually like to have it as an introduction again, an interdisciplinary way of working, but then in a completely different spatial scale. But it's nevertheless extremely spatial. Yeah, I would like now just to hand over to you.
Thank you. Let's start. Right. My name is Wolfgang. If I tell you what I'm doing, I'm probably going to be the odd one out here. I usually avoid telling people what I'm doing for a living. It's hard to explain to normal people what I'm doing. I'm working in Millennium Seed Bank, which belongs to the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew, and it's a big project. We collect seeds from all over the world and keep them for potentially hundreds of years. What they call the predictions that climate change hadn't got to keep them. I don't want to impress you too much. But anyway, the idea is to keep them for a long time in case we need them. Oh, better? I live in the country, I'm not used to this, so... So what I'm doing is, it's amazing. They pay me to look at seeds. And seed structure. And they pay me to photograph them and cut them up and study them. And seeds can be very, very small. Actually, the most interesting seeds are way smaller than a millimeter. And if you put them in a scanning electron microscope, you get pictures like this. It became very early very clear that this is a great tool to link to the public, because you can see the most amazing shapes. And because I'm at the Millennium Seed Bank, where we get seeds from all over the world of wild species, I get to see things that very few people have a chance to see. And that was when I met Alex.
Okay. Well, I came in, I actually met Wolfgang a little bit further down the line. In fact, the collaboration started with there have been 4 of us primarily in collaboration, and the collaboration really started at a very impromptu meeting at the London Book Fair in 2003. And 2 people came up and admired the books and said, introduced themselves. One, Rob Kessler, as an artist, a professor at St. Albans, and Dr. Madeline Hardy, who was working as a researcher at Kew. And they've been working together on some projects at Kew and said, well, we have this material, we find it really interesting. At the moment, it has been restricted to run within the realm of Kew and looking at stuff that only scientists that never really leave the laboratory as such. And that they suggested there might be potential to actually bring this material into a wider, more general market. And they then said, well, we've shown it to all the other publishers that we've managed to find, and they turned us down and they didn't like the project. And so we saw you and we liked the books and thought we would show it to you. That was when the kind of size of publishing, it was my father and I who were really running the publishing, who were the publishing house at the time, had the ability to take a very instant decision and not having an editorial board or other people to answer to, were instantly quite fascinated by the material that they showed and said, yes, we'll do a book. And things started very quickly from there. And the first book, called Pollen, appeared about a year later, just under a year later, in fact, and was met with quite a mixed feeling. I think people didn't know what to do with a book that mixed art and science together. They said, well, where are you going to put it on bookshelves? We're a bookshop. What subject do we put it under? Do we have it under science, art, photography, nature, botany? What is it? And so there was quite a kind of arduous battle, not just with the shops, but with the press and certainly convincing other publishers as well. And as things were really picking up with the Pollen book, this very early book, I then met Wolfgang at a publishing evening at Kew again. And Wolfgang said, I want to do for seeds what you did with Pollen, so that a whole other discussion started again, and again collaborating with Rob Kessler, the artist, and with Wolfgang's material and knowledge, we then started working on the seeds book. and now are in our the third book was published last September on fruits, and we're now working on our fourth did I say project?
Yeah.
And should I hand back and you can maybe show some of the content now?
I won't bore you too much in detail. The idea was for me to grab an artist like him, like Rob, and add those black and white SEMs, which come out like this. They don't look too bright. To scientists they're amazing, but for the public you need to add a little bit more. They come out black and white. There's no other way you can do it in SEM. But if Rob puts his hand on them, they look like this, and they tell a story. And for us at Millennium Seed Bank, it's very important to get our message across. It is about conservation, and it is a great tool to just get people interested in seeds that are normally not interested in plants at all. If I tell people I work on seeds, they think I'm the most boring person on the planet. The aim was to tell them it's not. This is how it works. This is the fruit from a species that's been collected in Arizona. It's called Grameria. It's a little spiny fruit. This is how they look in real life. They're being put on an aluminium stub, put in a machine where they are covered in a very, very thin layer of platinum in an argon atmosphere. And then you put them in the SEM. That's a machine that looks like this. It looks very complicated, but it's actually easy to use once you know how to do it. And you shuffle it in there, you put a high vacuum on. This is an infrared picture of the specimen inside the SEM. This is how it looks. You can actually watch it sitting in there. You can't see anything happening, but it's scanned by an electron beam, which has an extremely high wavelength. And the idea of the platinum is to just leave the extra charge off. That's all it does. You could put it in without the platinum, but then you would get charging and the picture wouldn't look very good. What comes out is a picture like this. That fruit of Grameria is actually, we've been misusing the machine. It's called a microscope. For our last book, we used it as a macroscope. We put in things that are way too big for the machine. So we had to take like 50 individual shots that Rob then had to stitch together until this came out. And so the work went on. I just showed you some pictures. This is an orchid seed. This is very, very small. This is way less than 1 millimeter long. And Rob puts his hand on these SEMs and makes them really look nice. And he turns them into pieces of art, in fact, that capture people's attention, which they wouldn't do so much if they would be black and white. And then we put them into context with their biology. This is the Malagasy comet orchid. Charles Darwin knew about this orchid. It's got a spur at the back of the flower that is nearly 1 foot long, and Charles Darwin already said there has to be a moth that has a tongue that is nearly 1 foot long to get down to the nectar of this flower. And this moth has been photographed a few years ago for the first time in Madagascar. We managed to get this picture for the book. So all these things have evolved over millions of years, and you look at them and you think, well, why does it look like this? And there's most of the time there's a reason. This is a seed of a tree in Mexico. I actually got a sample here. Just a moment. You can pass this around. There must be a little bottle somewhere there. It's very small. It's way less than 1 centimeter. And that's a fruit from an Australian acacia with a little seed coming out. The shapes, they turn up. They look great for me as a botanist. But when you put them in SEM, you get these super realistic pictures, just because the wavelength of electrons is so short that you get a picture that is so sharp. It's such a great depth of field, you could never get with light. So these pictures look very different from normal light microscopic pictures. That's another seed from Australia. That's a cornflower. That grows in the UK. That's a native wildflower. We sometimes group them together with the flower pictures, and Rob used colors that occur naturally in the plant as an inspiration for how to color those objects. I can go on and on and on. I could tell you loads of things. I use these pictures in my lectures to tell students about plant evolution, seed dispersal. This is actually a pollen grain in there, stuck. It's probably from the same species. It looks like a daisy pollen. That gives you a sense of scale. Pollen are very, very small. Fruits can be very, very big. Another English native, that's just a willow herb. Everybody has seen it growing in the field or the meadow. You put that seed in an electron microscope, it turns into some weird science fiction creature with all these spaghetti coming out at the bottom. That's a real life picture of a fruit that occurs in South America. It's a wind dispersed fruit, and believe it or not, if you cut off this spur there, it won't helicopter anymore properly. It's a perfect design of aerodynamics, and people actually used to study these fruits just for their shape, because they're so perfectly adapted to do the very accurate helicoptering to the ground. Those spines on the seed-bearing bit are just to ward off predators that want to eat the seed. That's a bizarre fruit from Australia. It's got spines and wings. I don't know how many you want to see. This is one of my favorites. This is a seed. And the shape is it's unbelievable. I can't give you a reason why it looks the way it looks, but the detail is just unbelievable. This is the fruit where the seeds come out. It's just mega bizarre. Love in the mist, that's something a lot of people grow in their gardens. When you zoom in into the detail of the seed coat, you get these patterns. They get no purpose whatsoever. Why they're there? I don't know. If I would know, I'd probably have a Nobel Prize by now. But the foxglove, that's just a simple foxglove. It produces thousands of tiny little seeds. They're very, very light. And you can see the honeycomb principle here that's been used for the inflatable structure, just to save weight but gain a lot of strength to the structure. That's what plants do as well. This is from Mexico. If you want to have extreme examples, you always have to go to the tropics, most of the time at least. And this is a parasitic plant from Mexico. The seed is about 600 microns long, 700. That's a lot less than a millimeter. It looks like a grain of dust, but in a microscope, it's got this amazing, very lightweight construction that carries it in the wind. Sometimes we compare these structures with modern architecture. This is the Aquatic Center in Beijing that uses just the same construction. I love Gaudi. Gaudi's got very organic shapes, and you can see those curves that Gaudi uses there, reoccurring in these fruits of this daisy-like plant. Lots more examples. It's just worth having a look at the detail. This has evolved to attach itself to animals, to the fur of animals. Lots of hooks, like Velcro, same principle. This is a rather sadistic fruit from Africa. It's about this big, and it's not very tender in its attempt to hook itself to animals. It can cause really, really deep wounds in the flesh just to get this fruit attached to the animal, which then carries it away to a different place. And then you go down to a minute scale. This is just a few millimeters large from Canada. It just looks the same. It's just not as vicious. That's a citrus fruit, a fig. Just show some more pictures. A kiwi. If you look at a kiwi, that's how it looks. Very strawberry, not very appetizing. Full of hairs, the lychee. And this is where I go back to Alex. I think he wants to tell you a bit more about how this whole collaboration evolved.
So I think, as you can see, this is really why we were completely captivated by these. And pollen being the earliest of the titles has gone through several incarnations now, and the last is in fact going to be published as a third edition in September. And really, what happens is, and what happened during the kind of making of these books, is that weekly, twice weekly, 3 times weekly sometimes, Rob, Wolfgang, or Madeline would arrive. Sometimes with a drive, sometimes with CBSA. We've just found these, or this seed has just been discovered, and it has to to go in the book, and the pages, I mean, there are just 264 pages, and they go very, very quickly. And you know, we have a file of scanning electron microscope images of tens of thousands of images, probably, and we have 250 maybe that we then have to select back. So, in fact, we take the opportunity of whenever we look like we're running low on copies, or someone else is willing to actually invest in doing a language translation, a co-production, we call it, that we actually chop in some new images, and we actually take advantage of the new technology of investment in new microscopes and being able to get much better images with much more clarity. Pollen is a classic example where technologists from 2003 was already working on a kind of microscope 2 generations older, and each time it's been made better and better. So that's the kind of decision that we've taken as a publisher, to keep these books kind of quite alive and keep them refreshed, and not have them as a static, you know, once it's published, that's it will have a lifespan of X number of years. I think the subject for us is fascinating because you can keep it really alive for a long time. I guess the technical problems were not only the selection of the images, but also how to balance a text that's written by scientists and make that into a kind of a text that would be understandable for people who weren't just, you know, necessarily botanists. It was really a series that was aimed at a public that didn't have to have a specific interest. And so we had to, well, Wolfgang didn't need much persuading actually, but to really aim the text, so although being scientifically correct, that it was fun to read and actually broken down, and see if you look at the contents, the subject headings that are quite fun, and you can really read snippets very easily. And whenever there is an image, there's quite an extended caption where most people who don't read the text can read the caption, get quite a good understanding of what the images are, and get an idea of the stories there as well. And really the other thing was the balance of the text with the images, and the colour was quite important because we wanted the colour to really reflect the colour of Rob's work. So all the text was coloured, there's very little white space in books, and the text is spaced out, so you look at a book that looks primarily coffee table, which is a term that I loathe, but it's, you know, you'd be surprised to hear that books have between 70 and 85,000 words in them, so there's actually a lot of text for your money. And
just a few words about the collaboration, because Rob is an artist, I'm a scientist. I made a point of not trying to influence him. So we sat together at the SEM. I got most of the material, but I did let him choose whatever they want to take pictures of. Sometimes I said maybe it's better to do it this way or that way. That's what scientists do. They always know better anyway. But I didn't tell him I want this, that color, and this, the other one. He just went off and did it, and whatever he came up with, I usually said, yeah, whatever. So that was, well, I had to, because it's supposed to be art. If I tell him to do it this way and that way, he wouldn't enjoy it, and it wouldn't be the real McCoy in the end anyway. So I had to make a point to keep my mouth shut. And it just, you know, it was great. It worked. It was a surprise every time he came back with the emails. I saw them black and white, and then every time I couldn't wait until he sent me a batch of images just to see what he's done. And that worked a treat.
Was there any kind of dialogue that happened within that process at all? Because I mean, you don't need to tell him what to do, but I'm sure it's in the back of the forward somewhere.
She don't really want to tell him what to do. Sometimes maybe I would just say that like maybe more colorful. He hated it when I gave him hairy specimens because they come out with a gray background, so he has to clean them up. And if you've got a blob with a smooth edge, it's very easy. If he has something hairy, he has to spend hours and days and clean around all these hairs to get rid of that gray background and make it all black. He hated that. So I made an effort to find as many hairy specimens as I could find. But otherwise, he's a very, very kind, very friendly person to work with. So there wasn't really anything I would call a problem. I just was conscious of the fact that you should leave an artist to do his work. That was the main thing.
I might add about the actual design process of the book, which is a lot of publishing houses will say, will sit the authors down, sign a contract, and say delivery date 1st of June, or else your book will be shelved, which is the worst thing. And I think we really worked together from the very beginning, from concept to the creation of the images, to the actual design layout. Everything was done really with two authors, with three authors together, and I couldn't have developed a style and a design without the direct influence and the direct.
Sorry.
But without the direct participation, really. So, yeah, that is gone.
Thank you. I think there are a number of ways we could try and open up the conversation. The first point that seems to come across in both projects is that there's a kind of shift in audiences that people are used to working with. I think it's probably most striking with the scientists producing a book for a very different kind of audience than either the technical literature or the technology that's used to record the specimens would normally produce. I mean, as you point out, it gets quite heavily manipulated, anticipating that will render the image differently for a new audience. But I thought of that also in terms of the first project, for the ways in which, for example, the MTech people who would normally be thinking of the production of the project in the very restricted audience of the specialist within the field, within your studio, over a very long time frame, are suddenly confronted by the, I would imagine, near trauma of having to produce something in like a week and a half for a group of people who really don't understand the argument about dragonfly wings and hexagons, but you actually just get on with the project. And to throw it open maybe to the various participants, just to jump into the conversation, where does the recognition of audience lie as you start to think about these projects? I mean, from both the publisher side, the content provider side, the designers, the client in your case, and also the performance event part of the project. Where does that, did the audience introduce new things or new constraints that shifted the work in ways different than whatever your ambition might have been? And there just seem to be straightforward ways that it did in some of the things you touched on. Because part of what you're doing, it seems, is shaping audiences for these things. You're literally creating an audience for someone who wants to look at seeds. Which is an audience you don't really think exists, but that this project helps coalesce. It's a kind of ambition.
I think, well, certainly our audience was, there was a very kind of cross-purpose in looking at who our audience was, and our end audience is it's varied. It's obviously botanists, people who are interested in structures, architects, artists, people looking at shapes and colour for inspiration, people who are serious scientists and researchers who contact both authors. But we have a kind of subtle audience as well, because in order to get to that audience, you have to convince your bookshop clients, and they're the worst in the world, because they have 30 seconds really to absorb the kind of whole content and concept of a new book. You'll have a sales rep that might represent 10 different publishers. They've each got 10 to 20 new titles coming out, and they flick through the catalogue, and you have to convince someone who's seen maybe 500 books that day that this book is one they want to stop, and not just one or two, but a small pile would be nice, and a note to restock once that is gone. So that was quite critical for us as well. And in order to try and convince the bookshops, we work very hard on press. And the press is something that, unlike most of the books that we welcome, the press for these books has continued. So it hasn't just been that the books have received attention just in the week prior and during publication, but it continues. And right from a double page spread in The Guardian, the front page of the BBC website, to articles right across journals, etc.
And as a publisher, I presume it's a different kind of audience to the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for us, it was we took the risk because at the time we actually wanted to expand our line of books as well, and to not just concentrate on art and architecture, but to actually open the avenues and look at it from a different point of view as well.
Similar from our point.
Yeah.
Everybody manufacturer not a lot of funding, and everybody on board. I thought already came in council. We could arrange on site here. I said okay. So I said, what's the problem? It's a tiny town in Germany, but you need always somebody who signs it off as an engineer. So at least we had to convince them. Really, we were going over that for let's say 3 nights or something, because we had to talk again with engineers. We made everything clear, like we for idiots to read, so to say, the book over in English and in German. And at the end, he was a one, so he signed it off. And then we handed on to the planning department. And even all the questions from this engineer, the planning department never asked us. So at the end, it was maybe a bit overdone, but you need the signature.
I mean, like UK bookshops, because our engineers in Germany or planning departments, for that matter, even though at the end they were easy, before they asked everything of the engineer as well, or them in Germany. It's actually, it's a weird thing, because people who are actually not interested in testing something out, they just want to be on the seashore side, and they want to deal with what, I mean, like, literally we had this guy explaining to us on the phone wood structure, and he said, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, and we can't explain it in the same way, it's not a normal need, so we explain it the way we have it, if you don't understand it, we can do whatever we are possible to do to make you understand how it works. But I mean, in a way, you have to move the press, we have to move as well. After writers over there, they say this is actually what we need for this, and we have different lobbies now. This is for the festival, which is culturally important, and so on and so forth.
Something a bit further far. We have already, was it after the okay, even before, they showed the film to the rendering already in Weimar. So it was here 2009, there was press, I don't know, 10,000 or something. So that was, we even didn't know if they signed it off. So of course that was a good info as well. So everybody laughed it. The only one person to sign it.
So this mediation is really the bit of like how you convince people that are not interested in doing something and not making everything secure. If they don't sell, they're not interested, right?
Yeah, and they don't necessarily know the subjects, they have no vested interest here, they don't have to buy the books and put that
They don't want to
down.
put the risk out, but you want to have a new product, and so did we, like something which is not just designed by a single architect, but actually by people in between architecture, theatre, performance, and things like that.
I mean, I think there's also a point with any collaboration is that you need to have the right collaborators. And, you know, from Flake's point of view, Flake's first and foremost a design firm, so everything we approach is from a design discipline. We have to make structures, but we enjoy the process of design. We like the challenge, and because we believe it and understand it, we'll say, well, of course it can be done. You know, so how do you get there? It's so important that you have that any collaboration, that you have to have people that want to work and that aren't surprised when things go wrong, because they always do.
I mean, the interesting bit was in place said yes, and the moment we showed them the most wacky and not proven things.
It's some kind of challenge.
Rather than not go with the other party collaboration. Did they meet a particular place, or were they completely different?
You can try if Robert came back with a colour which has nothing to do with the plant. I mean, like a strawberry, which is not red, but actually, I don't know, like purple with dots.
Fortunately, he had enough common sense to make the strawberry red.
But if you would have said, like, I don't have a concept, I don't want that because it doesn't pronounce my formula the way I want it.
I would be quite that blunt. Or maybe hint that something more different could be done. Whether he would do it, that would be up to his discretion, but normally...
No, I think what the question provokes, though, is the let's call it the division of labor in a straightforward sense. And I was making a note as you were presenting the Vienna piece that as I understood it, Inflate basically manufactures the piece, MTech designs the piece, the EU funds the piece, and then I was thinking, well, what is the AAIS doing? And then you see it presented. Actually, what they do is they perform the piece, or they choreograph the audience and the public perception. And
never different to the design process. It was right from the beginning there.
But it seems that the point I'm getting at is there seems to be a fairly clear and quite familiar functional clarity of the division. And of course, what gets interesting to imagine is at what point does Inflate get to perform? The Inflate guys, or are they performing? Or is there a way to think of them as the performers, them as the designers, these guys is the one that conceived of the project originally, a way to kind of challenge those sort of divisions. I think that's one of the questions that's being put on the table of this way of working and thinking today. Like, it would be great to see the scientist version of the artwork and the artist version of choreographing and categorizing the material, which is also in itself a very interesting kind of art legacy now, the recategorization of the world we know, taking the role that we normally attribute to scientists. And there would be an interesting challenge, I think, to provoke some of those.
I think the interesting bit was
stable.
How the line between client designer and manufacturer started blowing completely because of all this back and forth between the things. Because the client was not just like asking for I want that amount of space, so they said like, I want that kind of shadow. So our performance thing as well influencing the very logic of the space and the kind of sequence of the thing. So then as well the kind of discussions how actually some of them forms and ideas with the kind of dragonfly can influence that very performance again. And at some point it became the necessity of pushing things through actually.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden it was equalized.
Yeah.
Like, performer and designer, it doesn't matter, it has to be done within the night.
Deadlines clarified.
Yeah. And
the project management is the crucial thing as well.
I think some of the photos show clearly, like how, myself, Will, and Nick were standing on the same, pulling on the same bit of the structure to get it up. Anyway, there was no syndrome at all. Who was there was on the page. I believe that becomes as well then when you have to bring out publishing into press, also you have to talk all unisono about the project and think to make it really happen out there.
I think that's a challenge. I mean, these are all projects that are exercising ideas and disciplines and mixing things. But, I think they're successful because they've got a very solid, tangible, commercial result at the end of it. The end product is not commercial as such, but it's relatively coherent. Somebody's spending money to get something delivered that does the job that the designers and the architects want to do. That's why these projects are very valuable to me, because it's a real job. It's not theory, it's a tangible object.
So let's ask just the short answer for everybody. What was the biggest failure? I mean, I imagine at times establishing something called a kind of institute of failure, where the only form of learning that we would ever keep track of is the stuff that's just a disaster. Other than the wind blowing a lot, what was I'm curious, for example, was there a seed that we came across that couldn't be captured by the microscope? Was there something too big or too small for your world?
I think there was stuff that was both that a week later had gone to press and I said, can we not squeeze this one in? I've just found it. No, don't.
You make mistakes, you discover mistakes once the book has come to print. Tiny little ones, most people don't spot, but you spot them because interesting.
And you're not going to tell us what those
Yeah, right.
So you got 100 the book.
Failure is one when you stop progressing. You can see that it's now serious thing.
Yeah.
Nowadays as well. Now the really interesting performance thing when we start not being rushed anymore, where we actually can analyse what's right at the right time. I mean, in the end it came together, but there were days when it was just that. And so it's what kept it on is a collaboration. But the interesting bit is now that is existing, and it is actually a project, and we can push it to the next level and actually squeeze out even more performance possibilities, more misbehaviors of it. Because I mean, in a way, I mean, like the directors over there, like it's moving great, make it more. So I mean, they want to have wholesome greasing the whole time, and of course, like the planning departments would just drop over there. But I think this is the same. When we tried to bring it back to it in October to London, they have a completely different setting for it. In a German place rather than have a different combination of the second, maybe and second. Use the performative aspect in very different ways. Maybe more like paint on it, like on the word soda, like transform it again. So this continuous transformation and pushing on not to do that, that would be a big failure. So I think you can't speak of any failure in the moment it's still alive. The only failure would be...
Was the planners invited into the
Yeah, they were astonished.
They presented the project.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, the engineer, of course, came the day of, before the plan production and said, so, can you just, like, there's a down for testing for it? And we were all like, no. And the planning department was really fine. It stood up, there was wind, and they could see it wasn't moving. They went and were happy. Actually, they complained about the fire extinguisher inside the building. It had nothing to do with it. And on the day it was windy, everything was going away from the building.
Can I add as well that failure is an incredibly strong word. I think failure it would be a completely different outcome. Well, yeah, absolutely. But I know that we ran against a variety of problems in the technical, people's reactions, people who didn't want to collaborate with us. We had huge problems. And in fact, the first book paved the way for the second, which paved the way for the third, and this process of actually continuing and having it as an evolving project. Yes, there have been different incarnations, but the next book is always going to establish something, especially working with series and working with the series. Again, you can improve in many different aspects as well. You've got over those problems, and then you get a whole new load of problems which you then tackle, but it's not, they're kind of little mini like that, rather than one great big.
I think one could say that if there would be good planning department at all, and obviously everybody would like to find more things and testing which are really not defined in any of those things. Like the breathing structure with actors inside, what the directors immediately wanted, of course, and a couple of, Laura's was originally not thought to be an external dress, but actually being linked up, like parasitically with the thing. And of course, as soon as you touch it, you have an issue. And so the failure is maybe that we can't continue as far, like the establishment, as you would like to experiment really like how far it can go. But I believe again with having prototype and working things, that you might be able the next step to be a bit more risky. And I believe now they grab the book out of your hands, right? And they want to have the next thing. And so each time it gets easier to get more or less failure into it because people allow you to do more.
But the other thing you provoke, and I'm wondering if people might react similarly, which is how do we draw the boundaries to what we call the collaborative network? Because I'm thinking, the more you talk about these German planners, the more interested I get. Strange people. At what moment do they become part of the network of knowledge, expertise, not seen as an obstacle to overcome, but the person, it's a classic sort of either legal or military strategy to embody, to bring them in and say, look, we're doing this effectively with West Dorset right now to convince them that we want to build this world campus at the park, and the only way we do it is make the planners part of the team. The science book project, I'm also imagining questions about the printing house you use and the technology that produces these beautiful books, which at some point you found people that can actually produce these things. It's not just a project to imagine that you
But that wasn't an instant thing in itself.
it's something done out and shaped.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the biggest mistake, which is mine, is that books are 5 millimeters too wide. Which is a total pain because
We knew that, right?
well, there are not many printing houses that can print a book that's 285 mil wide. And so the first time they requested hand-bound, which was an issue in itself, and also very expensive because then all the copies had to be shipped out to a binder, shipped back to printers, and then it just was a big extra cost. And then we had a choice in the second book, should we make it, should we standardize it? And my dad and I thought, well, no, because we've done the first one, we don't want it to be different, we're going to stick to
Good.
And we did, and now we found a print that does have a machine. If you find them, that there was also black pens through many tests to find out our ideal black that was dense enough that it has not black, it's got kind of blue in it, so it's got a thick colour in it, and the whole process was using black that doesn't fingerprint, was the whole thing itself as well, which I think we finally cracked.
That's very good. Like
We
all
have
the
Germany
kids
here.
were tested in the EU, but Germany did a kind of demo for them. So 192 and
The whole of Germany is Union, not Jena. They have never heard of it.
But at the end we only had 2 kind of materials because we had to test them still under Germany.
Larry had a question.
Yeah, I think this has been fascinating to watch, and it reminds me of something that came through my email a couple years back when CS3 came out, which was a link to something that was going on at USC, University of Southern California, where they've got a very strong program oriented to innovation. And the thing that they're doing at the university is to link the animation school to the science departments. And what strikes me about where some of the conversation has gone is that it's kind of made this migration from audience to network. And I know you're very interested in networks. And the thing that strikes me about where that kind of logic leads is in this kind of strange pattern of moving through iterations via testing, what are the prototypes that don't work, or who are the right collaborators? And that depends upon building up this kind of expertise, and it's actually a kind of learning field. And what I find really fascinating about the way in which this has been presented is that we're seeing the start not just of presenting to an audience, that is, we have to get the message out, or we have to be able to sell the books, but that is, it starts to distinguish amongst different kinds of works of art that can begin to deliver a different scientific understanding, or works of architecture that can begin to deliver a different kind of understanding of space. And so as these things start to proliferate in a way, what they create is the possibility both of differentiating among competitors, but I guess it's like this, it's, that possibility of strange collaborations involved. I think it's really, really very nice that you're picking that stream up and running it with one.
I mean, about the shortcomings, I think the interesting thing, as soon as you have a bunch of people, I think the shortcomings are never general, they're individual. And so I believe, obviously, I think I didn't make any money on it, so we maybe did not everything we wanted, like every individual in terms of projections, in terms of actual manipulation of a structure to performing things like that. And I think that's the interesting thing about collaboration, that all of a sudden, yes, there are shortcuts and there are failures, of course, it would be ridiculous not. But as long as the project itself works, they're all working as a project, a success in a way, but the individual people, of course, see, I would have loved to do this, and so on and so forth. And I believe that's this kind of negotiation of individual kind of possibilities towards projects that enable, again, in turn, individual projects. I think that is the interesting move, and that's why interprofessional working is so much more interesting. And I think people of the same taste, of the same aim, competing with just one another. In a way, the failure or success will be always the same for everybody. I believe that's the interesting thing. That's why we could probably answer that if you fail or not.
Thanks. I think I'm going to wrap it up here, just because we promised everyone there are drinks in the room, drinks next door. So that's where the real conversation always takes place. Thanks everybody, all the participants, for coming in for this. Thank you very much.
Organises with blood and tears and sweat and everything. Fantastic, and I think you can see what it means to have a salon back to the school. And please keep on talking now, and this idea should flourish, and we have many more events to come.
Maybe just briefly mention, when is our next? We have next week?
On Thursday we have a play happening in here. Wednesday.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.